So Grinding Gear Games just released a huge Path of Exile 2 info dump. We got a bunch of information. We got a bunch of looks at things that we haven't seen before. We finally seen Endgame. We can talk about Endgame. I think this was like their chance to say like, all right, for everyone that has been naysaying, who's been saying like, I don't know if this is for me. I don't know. I like PoE 1 and PoE 2 doesn't really look like it's for me. This seemed to be what I think should really give you an understanding of what the game's going to be like. We've seen now what Endgame looks like in terms of like what you're going to be doing, the speed, the power level. You know, we haven't gotten a full, like, this is what a level 99 character looks like with the best gear. We haven't seen that. And of course, they're never going to show that. But we do know, like, we're going to get pounded, okay, in the best sense possible. We are going to get pounded in Endgame. There's a lot of Endgame systems that they're releasing with. And it looks like it's going to be a fucking great ass time. So I just want to go over some of the things that I think are important to mark up. First is the story. It opens up with this beautiful Blizzard-like cutscene. It looks awesome. I don't want to get into the lore yet, but I will say Path of Exile 1 lore, if you haven't watched like the Kitten Cat Noodle videos or dove into the lore, it is extremely extensive. It is no joke. Every single little faction and little detail is in the game and it's able to be uncovered. And there's still questions from Path of Exile 1. It's been out for fucking 10 years now. There's still questions that come up about the lore because how extensive and how intricate it is. And I really hope that they keep that with Path of Exile 2 while also kind of giving us this more cutscene Blizzard-like focus. I'm excited for what kind of stories are going to come out of it. And it's cool that GGG is like, look, we know no one really cares about this, but we kind of do. So we're just going to put as much of it in here as possible. And the people that do care about it, like the Kitten Cat Noodles, can really dig their heels in and you know, give us some really cool lore breakdowns because there's so much. I mean, it's hard for me to even explain just how much is in this game. It's or at least in Path of Exile 1. I don't know how Path of Exile 2 is going to be. I hope they just keep that trend going. Keep it in the background. Let us find out the lore, kind of like Souls-like styles where you have to find it through items and through certain markings around the world and things like that. And let us kind of keep some mystery in there. We got to look at all the ascendancies that are going to be releasing. There's going to be 12. The classes, of course, there's 6 classes, each with 2 ascendancies. The new classes are going to be the Merc and the Monk. And the Merc being like the guy with the crossbows and the shooting, and that seems to be what I'm leaning towards for League launch. And then the Monk, which is with the staff, and you do a bunch of kung fu shit. Looks awesome. They both look really cool. I think the Merc looks so good. One of the coolest experiences is going to be playing like a twin stick shooter with Path of Exile loot tables and Path of Exile endgame customization, but with twin stick shoot. I mean, it's going to be awesome. I'm really excited for that. That's probably what I'm going to be starting with. I really like what Ranger looks like too. I know there's the sorceress and the warrior stuff looks great as well. So I mean, there's so much there. Just that in and of itself, and like discovering those ascendancies in those classes is going to take a lot of time, and there's just so much fun in that in and of itself, and they already kind of like add on top of that. So there is no shortage of content for early access. It's not going to be like No Rest for the Wicked, where you get like a couple scenes and that's it, and you're just you're begging them to release more because they just kind of leave you off the hook. There's a lot here. There's a lot of gameplay, a lot of figuring out. There's going to be a lot of like third-party stuff that's going to come up and enhance the gameplay. We're off to the races, man. We got a couple of weeks left, and then we're off to the fucking races. One interesting thing about the gem system is that you only get 1 support per character.
Note that you can only have 1 of each support gem on your character, so you'll want to think carefully about which supports can be used best with each skill for maximum damage.
If you have a multiple projectile gem in one, you can't use that in any other one. You can't have 5 skills all using multiple projectiles. So that is actually an excellent change, a very clever change in terms of building build diversity, like giving you build diversity and making sure that certain skills can have certain things and they're not constrained by balance problems. Like a lot of the times with Path of Exile 1, the reason why it gets stale so quickly is because these skills fall into sort of the same archetypes, right? If projectiles are good, Well, then the game is get as many projectiles on the screen as possible as fast as you can, right? There's no real cleverness there. Now you can actually build out this combo system that they're really kind of highlighting, building out certain scenarios where a skill may do this, a skill may be AoE and clear focus, while another skill deals with degens and another skill deals with bosses. And that's a much more clever way in giving us build diversity and character diversity. And there's going to be build diversity within builds, if you think about it. So that's going to be really interesting, right? And then you have, on top of that, you have the weapon swap system. So now you have basically two of those systems that you can swap between on the fly triggered. You don't even have to press a button to do it. You can have those systems trigger certain things. It's just going to be insane. I mean, there's so much here. Lab is now Sanctum or Ultimatum, and then they said they're releasing another one in the future, but for now it's just going to be Sanctum or Ultimatum. So you can run a Sanctum and get your lab points, or you can run the Ultimatum. If you just want to kill stuff, Ultimatum's the way to go. If you want to kind of have like a traditional lab experience, I guess you can go Sanctum. Those are also Endgame Systems, which I'll talk about a little bit later, but that's how you're going to get lab. I mean, I am not the biggest fan of lab, mainly because it's just not that fun. I like Sanctum and I like Ultimatum, so maybe it'll be more fun this way. We'll see. I don't know. It really just depends on the problem with lab is the power curve, like the level of power that you're at when you do it is just kind of limiting. So you just want to get through it as fast as possible. We'll see kind of how that is when the game releases. So the biggest change I think this has showed us is the mapping system overhaul. So you're not just going to be dropping random maps and putting them into the map device like in PoE 1. And the maps are going to be like these set maps, right? So you're not going to just be running Strand over and over and over and over again. What's going to happen now is that this is an infinite and expanding, like procedurally generated mapping system. So you get like this plot that looks like Civilization or Risk or something, and there's all these little plots, and these plots have different things on them. They can have like certain league mechanics on them. You can buff them in certain ways. Some might be corrupted, and it just keeps expanding and expanding and expanding. It's a really cool way to kind of add a level of exploration to the game and just kind of that extra little bit of world building, which I think is important for end game content. That just constantly just keeps going, right? Of course, there's still like an Atlas system, but that just buffs that sort of like Atlas plot that they've shown. It's just going to be fun just playing in that sort of environment and not having to worry about. This is one of the main things, right? If you die in a map, you can't run that map anymore. Okay, so once you die in that map, you have to choose a different plot in that thing. So there's going to be certain like tile sets and certain ideas of what you want to do that's going to run certain content better than other I guess tile sets. But in terms of like, you know, I'm going to go to the map thing and buy 150 strands and just run those in an hour. That's not the case anymore. That's not how it's going to work. And that's really interesting. And on top of that, not every map has a map boss. So I think they said like 1 in 4 maps, maybe 1 in 3 maps are going to have a map boss. So, and you'll see like the map boss. So that means like you don't even have to run map bosses. Like you don't have to do any sort of bossing if you don't want to. You can just sort of like plot your course or however you want to do it. The thing is, you're going to want to run map bosses because they are going to have like better drops, like guaranteed better drops. They also have explained that they've increased map randomization tenfold. So you're going to get, they said there was like 400 monster types. You're going to get an insane variety of maps. It's always going to be different. It's always going to have different stuff in it. Now the league mechanics, you can force those into these areas, and you can run the content that you want, but the tile sets and the maps and all of that stuff, that is going to require, if you want to run the kind of maps that you want, you're going to have to really kind of fine tune your system to do that. One thing I didn't like is that they said strong boxes are back. I hate strong boxes. I think they're really bad for the game. But, however, one change that they made is that the strong boxes open up really slow now. They take like 10 seconds to open up. So you can't just go to a map and start fucking unlocking all the strong boxes and then just plow through it. You have to sit there and wait fucking 10 seconds for these things to slowly spawn out, and then you can kill them to get your reward. I think that's a pretty clever way of like nerfing strong boxes. I don't know. I don't think it's the best system. I'm not the biggest fan of strong boxes. Maybe that'll change when we play PoE 2, but the way that it is in PoE 1, I just find them, not that fun. I mean, they're just too ubiquitous. Like they're just too good. I don't enjoy them. What is a great change is essences. So essences now guaranteed one mod. Okay, they don't roll your item anymore. They just throw the one mod on there. So if you have a essence of hatred, it's just going to give you that cold. You can either add that to a magic item or turn a normal item into a magic item with one of those mods, meaning you'll have an extra mod that you can augment, or you can or you can add another to a rare, right? So you can have two essentially. So the way that they explain this, and I'm going to probably do a little quick, how to craft in PoE 2 video, but you can deterministically add two mods with essences on an item. And that is really going to help crafting. I mean, that's really going to kind of give you those early good bases that you need to kind of get to the better endgame stuff that you want. So essentially, because there's no scour anymore, because there's no re-rolling items, the game is going to be finding bases that you like and then trying to roll those mods on them. So you're going to have to collect bases, roll those mods on them. Essences are going to allow you to roll modifiers that you need, certain maybe damage mods or resistance mods, stuff like that. That's going to be added on there. And then they added a couple other things, like you can get runes and stuff, and there's a few other things that you can do. There's different ways implicits work that can kind of enhance those items. But in terms of like the high power top of the top items, a lot of that stuff has been pulled back. I mean, we're not going to see much of that for the first early access. They've pulled that stuff back, and they really want to make a focus on like picking items up, which is the best change about PoE 2, in my opinion, is this focus on finding items. One of the best experiences I had in PoE 1 was when Recombinators first came out, and you could just pick items up. You'd find, you say, oh my God, this has a mod that I want on a base that's good. I have two of them. Let's put them together and make a cool item. That was so fun because you cared about the shit that you were finding on the ground. I never found it fun to just sit there, find a base that's like, you find it the next map. It's not difficult to find a base, or you just buy it off trade. And then you just roll it. You just roll it from white. You make the item that you want. You're done, right? All you need is the currency to get there. I was never a fan of that. I much rather spend the time to find the good parts that you want, and then use that gambling system, use that luck to get a better item, or to get the top of the top item. And then the endgame systems that they talked about: Breach, Ritual, Expedition, Deli, plus the Sanctum and Temple. So 6 endgame systems in early access. Not bad at all, if you ask me. There has been some substantial changes to all of those systems. They're not just ripped from PoE 1. They're going to feel familiar. I mean, there's if you know these systems, you're going to know them in PoE 2. However, they are a little bit different. They do require a different sort of thing to know about them and to progress them. So that's awesome. I mean, we really have some cool stuff. And then they have pinnacle bosses, of course. There's going to be a pinnacle boss, and bosses to kind of kill and do all that stuff. So this was a huge info dump. I mean, it was how long? It's almost an hour and a half reveal that they did. And I thought it was great. I thought this is really something that they needed to show, was like, this is what you're going to be playing. This is basic, you know what I mean? Like, not all of us are going to be in the campaign the whole time. We're going to be playing this game for hundreds and hundreds of hours. So we need to know, what's the meat of the game like, right? Like, also, what does it even look like? We haven't even seen it. We don't know what a character looks like in a map. But now we know. I mean, there's lots of enemies. It looks tough. There's explosions everywhere. It looks reminiscent of PoE 1, except a little bit slower, but also with way more fluidity to it. You're just flowing around, you're moving around, explosions look beautiful, things are blowing up, it still looks tough, and then you're fighting bosses that require much more agility and much more mechanical know-how to kind of beat them, in terms of like dodge rolling and blocking and setting up combos and stuff. So they're really just like, it really does feel like a true successor to PoE 1. I'm very excited to try this out. I can't wait. I'm definitely going to be on the list, as I looked at my statement in terms of how much money I've spent on the game. And if you've spent over $480, you should be on the list. I spent a little bit more than that. But yeah, I'm excited. So